Two more teams qualified, meaning that there are still 13 squads looking to book their place in the round of 16. If you thought that the games were exciting so far, well, it's about to get even tougher over the coming days. Welcome to our daily sports update. Joining me here in Paris is Karim Baldi, as always. Hi, Karim. Let's go straight, though, to Doha first and speak to our sports editor, Simon Harding, who's outside the Lusail Stadium, where Portugal have just beaten Uruguay 2-0 to qualify for the knockout stage. Simon, a deserved win for Bruno Fernandes' side. I would say Bruno Fernandes because it was clearly him who scored the opener, not Cristiano Ronaldo, right?
No, he was absolutely sensational. I liked how you called him Brunandes. That's maybe a new nickname. But yes, Portugal joined Brazil and France as the three qualified teams for the last 16 in this second round fixtures. Bruno Fernandes, absolutely sensational. And a Portugal team that's starting to depend less and less on Cristiano Ronaldo. And perhaps for the better, because Cristiano Ronaldo so far has only scored a penalty. But certainly Portugal have been one of the most impressive sides at the World Cup so far. They've scored 5 goals now. They've conceded only 2. They were one of the pre-tournament favourites. They rode their luck at times against Uruguay. You've got to say the penalty, a lucky penalty. For according to some people, it shouldn't have been a penalty. But certainly they can take a lot of heart moving forwards. And Portugal definitely a team to look out for. A bit of a dead rubber against South Korea and an opportunity for the European champions in 2016 to rotate the squad.
Yeah, and that 2-0 victory that comes for them today. Karim, it was a very defensive Uruguayan side.
Yeah.
They looked quite threatening at some point, but of course when that penalty came in, all those hopes gone up in smoke.
Yes, exactly, but we're so disappointed to see that Uruguay, because each and every time since 2010 when they reached the semi-finals, we are always disappointed. They have so many quality players. I just take a look at the squad. When you see Darwin Núñez from Liverpool, Edison Cavani, who scored a lot in Paris Saint-Germain, now in Valencia. You have Bentancur, you have Federico Valverde, who is on fire with Real Madrid. And what did we see on the pitch? I won't say almost nothing because they have some chances tonight, but still that's not enough. They can move forward. They can have much more opportunities to score. And at the end, nothing today. No goal today. And no goal against South Korea.
Which was,
South Korea.
Straw.
So no goal at all. How can they think they can move forward in this competition without scoring? That's not possible.
No, you can't. You can't. If you don't take any goals in, it's a good sign. But of course, you've got to in the end get them there as well. They're not the only ones, of course, to have qualified tonight. World Cup heavyweights Brazil were the other team who made it through to the knockout stage. They battled their way to a 1-0 victory against Switzerland. Let's start debriefing the game with Selina Sykes, who was at that game.
Brazil's attack was very much under scrutiny here tonight with the absence of Neymar, and the absence of his craft was very much visible at times with a lack of imagination on the pitch. The Brazilians had to be patient to find their way through a well-organised Swiss defence. The best chance in the first half came from Vinicius Junior with a shot at the back post, saved by the Swiss goalkeeper 27 minutes in. That's the longest the Brazilians have taken to have a shot on target at a World Cup since 1994. The Real Madrid player also then had a goal ruled out for offside 64 minutes in. The Brazilians having just 5 shots on target here this evening, despite all their attacking flair. It was defensive midfielder Casemiro who got the decisive goal for the Brazilians 83 minutes in on the half volley. He was set up by Rodrigo, though it has to be said that the Swiss did well to keep them at bay, but they also failed to really challenge the Brazilian goal. Alisson is yet to have made a save at this World Cup. In fact, the Brazilians have not faced a single shot on target so far in their first 2 group games. No side has had that since France all the way back in 1998.
It was far from an easy win for Switzerland today. We know, and of course we can remember their past performances like in the Euros.
Yes.
They're never an easy side to beat.
Never an easy side. And because they have, first of all, a good goalkeeper with Jan Sommer, and then when you look at the tactics against Brazil, 2 strong and 2 tight curtains, 4 in the defensive line, 4 in the midfield. So Brazilian forwards and Brazilian midfielders couldn't even develop their way of playing for almost all this game. But at the end, they found a solution. And Sweet's head coach said that he was disappointed, obviously, and maybe they they
Not too much going on with the attack.
Yes, exactly. Nothing. No shot on target, for example, for Switzerland today. So they couldn't expect more. And 2 of their 3 main forwards were absent today. So they couldn't expect more. But they wanted to keep this draw up to the end. And finally, Casemiro broke it down at the end.
Yeah, which is inevitable to happen if you're playing
That's what he
that
said,
way.
the coach.
Exactly. After it, let's cross the Atlantic and go and speak to our correspondent Tim Vickery, who's in Rio. Tim, 3 beautiful goals, 2 clean sheets for Brazil so far. Alisson hasn't been challenged much. It isn't just the forwards who are working hard, is it?
No, and I think the coach will be absolutely delighted at the defensive solidity. You can't win the World Cup in the group phase, but you can lose it. And Brazil, they don't look in much trouble at all. And even that very, very attacking lineup that they played in the first game against Serbia, they were never in any problems. Today's game were harder. The opponents were better. It's a good Swiss side. A Swiss side who, there were 1 or 2 little moments of panic in the Brazil defence, but Brazil were always in control. And the question became, could they break down the Swiss? Could they break down a very disciplined, well-organised side without Neymar? It's hard to think of Neymar as the uncle, all right, the footballing uncle, a kind of footballing Jacques Tati of this young group of Brazil strikers. But that's what he is. And without him, the youngsters had to grow up, had to show some responsibility. And it was hard work. And in the end, they needed to throw bodies forward from deeper. It was the midfield anchorman, Casemiro, of course, who scored that goal. But I think one of the big bonuses that they have from these 2 games is that Vinicius Jr. is now consolidated as a Brazil player. He hadn't had an easy time in the national team going into the tournament. He hadn't really found his feet. Rafinha on the other wing had looked much better in a Brazil shirt than Vinicius. But Vinicius has come through these 2 games extremely well. He is now a consolidated Brazil star as well as a star with Real Madrid.
Yeah, definitely. You speak of Neymar and his absence, of course. He's expected, if I'm right, to return for the knockout stage. But if he doesn't, if his ankle doesn't get better, do you think Brazil will be all right going forwards, considering what we've seen from them tonight without him?
It's a huge loss, and we still don't know when he's going to be back. The squad is probably overloaded with wingers. And Brazil wish the football field had 4 wings. They could easily put a top-class performer on each of those wings. But Neymar between the lines, helping open up space for those wingers. They don't really have a natural replacement. And they tried in the game against Switzerland. The initial idea was to push Lucas Paquetá, once of Lyon, a little bit further forward. I think they knew that wasn't really going to work. And so for the second half, they went with Rodrigo of Real Madrid, who is very much seen as the future of the Brazil team. Has that future arrived a little bit too early? But it was a really good workout. And some of the warm-up friendlies, Brazil was scoring from their first chance, and the game was all over before half-time. With those 3 points in the bag from the first game, they could afford to suffer a little bit. And the coach will have enjoyed immensely the fact that his players didn't lose patience, stuck to their task, never overcommitted, kept their defensive solidity, and in the end, found a solution to win the game.
Yeah, I want to come back just to the coach in just a minute. But first, Karim, of course, teams, when they come in and play with Brazil, they do their homework.
Yeah.
And we saw that today, Richarlison, he wasn't able to replicate what he did before that.
Yes.
That's obviously a concern for Brazil, being the weight that they are. They know that teams are going to have to, they're going to go throw everything into that when they come up against them.
Yeah, but even if Richarlison couldn't score today, but they have so many other players in this team, and Tim talked about that a couple of seconds ago. They have Richarlison, they have Junior, Vinicius, Rafinha, and just a word on Vinicius, because once at Real Madrid he was booed sometimes at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium because he wasn't efficient enough, but he grew up for I think the last 2 years, and now he's a complete forward. And we saw that even if his goal was disallowed by the VAR, but still, yeah, they have all the means to win this World Cup. That's what I said on day one here on France 24, and I will take it because they have this defense as well, and Tim talked about it. So even if Richarlison won't score today or tomorrow or the next game, but they can do without it. They can even do without Neymar, in my opinion, to be honest. So even if he won't be back for the round of 16 game, they can move forward.
Yeah, they proved that. Tim, speaking of Vinicius, because, I mean, clearly he continues to impress. He hasn't made it onto the score sheet yet, even though he thought he had tonight. But clearly he's playing with so much cool. He doesn't look troubled by the opposition because they're trying to close him down. And after he scored what he thought was a goal, he kept that same cool. Is this what Tiche has built, a squad that's relaxed, that's confident, that knows that they can get what they need to get those wins?
Certainly. And you also see the individual development of Vinicius. It's very difficult to be precise in your finishing when you are moving as quickly as Vinicius moves. Although that goal was disallowed for the offside of Richarlison earlier in the move, Vinicius doesn't know that when he's bearing down on goal. And he kept his cool wonderfully well and scored with one of those little finishes that shows you don't need to break the back of the net. All you need to do is get the ball over the line. So his individual development, I think, is very, very good news. You do worry a little bit that the side is rigid, that it's set up with Vinicius wide on the left and Rafinha wide on the right and Richarlison through the middle. And Neymar is the joker in the pack, the one who's given freedom. Can Rodrigo play this role in the absence of Neymar? Well, he'll certainly have another game to get himself bedded in against Cameroon. And Brazil now have this luxury. They can use this third group game just to have a look at maybe some fringe players or to have a look at Rodrigo in that role and make sure they're even more better prepared for when the competition really gets serious in the knockout phase.
Yeah, some experience for them, some luxury time, as you say, and of course time for them to rest a little bit in between. Thanks a lot, Tim. We'll come back to you, of course, throughout the tournament. The day began, though, with a real goal fest. Cameroon, who came from behind, they equalised 3-3 against Serbia, a draw that leaves both sides with just 1 point after losing their games. But Karim, Vincent Aboubakar coming on, changing the game for Cameroon. Why was he not in the starting team there?
This is a good question because there were so many hard debates and heated debates in Cameroon about how Rigoberto can make this attack side moving forward. And there were debates about Choupo-Moting and Aboubakar. Can they play together? In my opinion, the answer is yes. And from what we saw today, the answer is still yes. Because once Aboubakar came into the pitch, he could combine with Choupo-Moting. And we saw the celebration when he scored that Choupo-Moting went up on his shoulder. So it seems that there's a peace between them. And so many people doubted about it, but they can play together. So we hope to see, and I hope to see, both of them in the front line for the game against Brazil. I think that's their last chance.
Because we know how important he is.
Yes.
Top goal scorer at the Africa Cup of Nations.
Yeah, but the thing is that sometimes Vincent Aboubakar talk too much, you know. He has some post-game declarations, and that was get at the AFCON, like maybe condemning other players, his own teammates on air. That's not possible. You can't talk badly of your teammates on air. That's what he did, and that's why there were some tensions inside the tenure of the Indomitable Lions. So now we don't care about it. They have to let that away and to play as strong as they can, because Brazil is huge. And even if Brazil will maybe put other players, substitute players, but Cameroon, they shouldn't listen to that. They just have to play the way they could play, and they don't have to react each and every time, because that was the case at the AFCON, and you were there as well, James. They always react. They can't have the good tactic from scratch to the end of the game.
They need to be under pressure, don't they?
Yes.
They need that pressure.
Definitely.
Just like some teams do, but look, they're going to have to find their way of getting in front once and for all and holding on to that. It was far from the only nail-biting game today. Ghana, who beat South Korea 3-2, they caught up from their lost lead. Let's go back to Simon in Qatar. Simon, the Black Stars, consistent in their game, and that counter-attack especially was crucial for their win today.
Certainly, if you look at the way that Ghana have scored their goals at this World Cup, then the 5 goals, almost all of them have been scored in transitional moments, apart from the free kick, really, that led to the opening goal in the match against South Korea. Every Ghana strike has been on the counter-attack, and it's a game where we're seeing Otto Addo really basing himself on a solid defence, a strong defence, a really, shall we say, African defence, you know, with those big bodies there, strong bodies, very fast bodies. Mohamed Salisu is one of them. Tyreek Lamptey came in today and was very positive in the right-back position. And they're using that to their advantage to try and get results. And they got the result that they wanted against South Korea. 2 goals up, then they had a little bit of a scare, it has to be said, with South Korea coming back to 2-2 with half an hour left to play in the game. But their talismanic midfielder, Mohamed Kudus, who is certainly one of the stars of this World Cup so far, thumping in the 3rd for the Black Stars, who shone at their brightest in this game. And they had to, because now they're in a perfect position not only to qualify from this group stage for the first time since 2010, but to get a victory over Uruguay, of course. We all know what happened in 2010 and that last-minute Suarez handball to deny not only Ghana but the entire Africa continent a first ever World Cup semi-final, and that's very much going to be in their back of their minds. A draw will do, but I think that might be the danger. If Ghana only play for a draw, they might put themselves in danger. Uruguay have the talent, as we said before, Karim was saying, they've got the players to play, so they're going to have to be careful. But very, very impressive Ghanaian side. They pushed Portugal very, very deep, and they dominated for large parts of the game as against South Korea with their weapons, not dominating possession, but certainly dominating the game plan.
Yeah, Karim, they're of course not the only African team that's still in contention for getting through to the knockout rounds.
Yeah, because we rely on Senegal. In my opinion, Senegal is the best chance to move as much as they can in the World Cup for Africa. So we'll see tomorrow if they can win against Ecuador. And it will be a win or go home situation, which is, in my opinion, better for their mindset than back in 2018, where they made a draw and that wasn't enough because of the yellow card. So I trust in Senegal for tomorrow.
Big day
I decided to grab this shot as well, you know.
There you go. Well, we'll speak about it, of course, same time tomorrow. Match day 3 then beginning. So with 3 teams qualified, the stakes over the rest of the week are going to be huge games within each group now set to be played in pairs at the same time. Group A, only Qatar, who've been knocked out for now. England, who would go through with just a draw, and Iran versus USA. Of course, already a very politically charged game off the pitch. We'll be following all of that for you. Thank you, Karim, for coming on. We'll speak more tomorrow night after all of that. Thank you for joining us again. See you again tomorrow at the same time. Bye-bye.